A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 13, verses 22 to 30. Passage taken from the Message version of the Bible. He went on teaching from town to village, village to town, but keeping on a steady course towards Jerusalem. A bystander said, "Master, will only a few be saved?" He said, "Whether few or many is none of your business. Put your mind on your life with God. The way to life, to God, is vigorous and requires your total attention. A lot of you are going to assume that you will sit down to God's salvation banquet just because you have been hanging around the neighborhood all your lives. Well, one day you are going to be banging on the door wanting to get in, but you will find the door locked and the master saying, 'Sorry, you are not on my guest list.' You will protest, 'But we have known you all our lives,' only to be interrupted with his abrupt, 'Your kind of knowing can hardly be called knowing. You don't know the first thing about me.' That's when you will find yourselves out in the cold, strangers to grace. You will watch Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets march into God's kingdom. You will watch outsiders stream in from east, west, north, and south, and sit down at the table of God's kingdom. And all the time, you will be outside looking in and wondering what happened. This is the great reversal. The last in line put at the head of the line, and the so-called first ending up last. The Gospel of the Lord. Reflections on the Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 13, verses 22 to 30. Luke continued to use the image of journey to Jerusalem for his reflection on the spiritual journey of the disciples of Jesus. Here he presents a question and brings out a deeper teaching from Jesus. Are there only a few who are saved? It reflected the widespread notion of predestination of those who will ultimately be saved, and the religious leadership regarded themselves to be among the chosen ones. But Jesus uses the opportunity to present a deeper reflection on the life of the disciple. He calls on his disciples not to follow the crowd, not to succumb to the popular ideologies. The path to follow is the path trod by Jesus himself, but unfortunately it remains quite unpopular and not many are willing to walk this way. Hence, the Lord says, "It is a narrow door, which many will not be able to enter." In his advice to the disciples sent on mission, he told them to travel light, to trust in God, to possess only the minimum. The same approach should be carried on to our way of living at all times. Discipleship is a matter of letting go than of accumulating, of surrendering than of controlling, of learning to accept one's powerlessness and helplessness before God than trying to look good and to be in a position of strength to bargain. What mattered for Jesus was that disciples truly listened to him, shaped their lives according to his values, and learned to love. Salvation was certainly not a factor of ethnic or religious identity. Luke wanted to tell his community that calling themselves Christians was not a guarantee for their obtaining God's salvation. It required that they truly walk the path shown by Christ, the path of the gospel, the narrow door. Everything else served only to inflate the self-image and make entry through the narrow doorway impossible. Weeping and gnashing of teeth was not a description of the life after death, rather, it was a poetic expression to stress the importance and urgency of the issues at stake. Choose life when you still have the chance to choose it, because there will be a time when you have no more chances left. Some who are last will be first, and there are some who are first who will be last. The message may have been particularly reassuring for Luke's community of Gentile converts. They were among those coming from the east and west, from the north and the south. They were the latecomers. The message is true for us too. It is never late to turn to God and to His saving grace.